the basic dimensions of reality: sound, movement, and thought. The basic responses of I and I. Metamorphosis.
Keep listening.
In life I shall be the same, in death I shall be a terror.
I'm on black, me no brown, me no white. Now see Babylon stripe, you mad.
Guiding I eternally. Guide I. It's the voice that sets me free. Guide I.
Emerging from a cocoon into a caterpillar, from a caterpillar to a butterfly. The metamorphosis is here, it's live. Metamorphosis.
Metamorphosis, word, sound and power, music, drumming, current affairs, everything to grow and lift up your mind. Metamorphosis.
No more youths and youths for sale. We get wise and don't decide to change their style. Bobby wrong, keep your empty promises and your crooked smile. Metamorphosis, come with your thoughts, change your way of thinking. Metamorphosis, the change begins with you.
I'm going to pass it, black men of Ethiopia, Timbuktu, Alexandria, gave the light of civilization to this world. Ethiopia shall stretch forth our hands unto God, and princes shall come out of it.
Guide I. It's the voice that sets me free. Guide I.
Good evening, I'm on Black.
Good evening.
This is Pauline from St. Mary. Calling to big you up on your program. I am a disciple. I've been there since almost the inception.
Guide I. It's the voice that sets me free.
I just see me tune into because, I always even watch someone that tell life and stuff, and that's a festival for later. I have to really listen to you first, you know what I mean?
One man chiki bunjul, kidapa bunjul, one yande kesawai, kidapa bunjul, one man chiki bunjul, kidapa bunjul. Daphne Raffet, you went a menda ingama, getting Daphne Raffet, you went a menda ingara, Daphne Raffet, you went a menda ingara. Did you know that's a richer Africa? Did you know that's a richer Africa? Did you know? Said the whole world love it. Did you know? Said the whole world love it. Be proud of your culture. Be proud of that's what you got. Be proud.
This is Audible.
Recorded Books presents an unabridged recording of Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. Narrated by Peter Francis James. This work is copyrighted 1959 by Chinua Achebe. This recording is copyrighted 1997 by Recorded Books.
Part 1. Chapter 1. Okonkwo was well known throughout the 9 villages, and even beyond. His fame rested on solid personal achievements. As a young man of 18, he had brought honor to his village by throwing Amalinze, the cat. Amalinze was the great wrestler who for 7 years was unbeaten, from Umuofia to Mbino. He was called the cat because his back would never touch the earth. It was this man that Okonkwo threw in a fight which the old men agreed was one of the fiercest, since the founder of their town engaged a spirit of the wild for 7 days and 7 nights. The drums beat, and the flute sang, and the spectators held their breath. Amalinze was a wild animal.
Flat tears.
upon years, we've been shedding black tears, and now we're standing in quicksand. Now who, tell me who is to blame? It lies with us and no one else. We shedding every day, black people wasting away, black tears drowning our minds, black people walking blind. That's the wool of our eyes. Our future don't look bright, but we have the answer to shed no more black tears. Hey, self-pity done, no more talk. Time for black people walk the walk and take control of the situation. We cry peace, we cry love, but get no answers. Action will get a reaction. Stand up and fight, and that will stop the black tears. We shedding every day. We will stop wasting away. No more cloud in our minds. No more walking blind. No more wool of our eyes. We future gonna be bright. We have the answer. Stand up for our rights. We gonna stop the black tears. Black tears. Black tears. For years, up and years, we've been shedding black tears, and now we're standing in quicksand. Now who, tell me who is to blame? It lies with us and no one else.
All praise unto the Most High. His last year. Rastafari. Abolish slavery right now. Pharaoh let my children go. Hey. Africa prepare, 'cause I'm coming home. Black man prepare, 'cause we going home. Africa prepare, I and I coming home. People prepare, 'cause you're going home. Woo! The joy you bring you, my song I sing you, the fire within you, the struggle continue. Let's just begin you. We got to win you, the prosecute and trim you, still praise the king you. Got to be bold and brave, they call you, settle us, they call you. Free slave, now look at you, with the length of days, give praise, fire of the blaze. Africa prepare, 'cause I'm coming home. Black man prepare, 'cause we going home. Africa prepare, I and I coming home. People prepare, 'cause you're going home. No equal rights, no justice, no schools, no jobs. The more they use them book this. They do some farming, we get up to blow and we put this. Babylon can't touch this. Look to the east for the crowning of your king. That's the way you are should go. Best first I ever live in God a place, and I'm living in a by flow. Africa prepare, 'cause I'm coming home. Black man prepare, 'cause we going home. Africa prepare, I and I coming home. People prepare, 'cause you're going home. They spread their propagandas because they want to start that thing, and the backstabbers they slander and they chat all sort of thing. No, I'm the light of the world. What a thing! Bundum Rome, bundum Babylon, they can't stop what thing. They always fight the right. prepare, cause I'm coming home.
Already too late, said Oberika sadly. Our own men and our sons have joined the ranks of the stranger. They have joined his religion, and they help to uphold his government. If we should try to drive out the white men in Umuofia, we should find it easy. There are only 2 of them. But what of our own people who are following their way and have been given power? They would go to Umuru and bring the soldiers, and we would be like Abame. He paused for a long time and then said, I told you on my last visit to Mbanta how they hanged Aneto. What has happened to that piece of land in dispute? Asked Okonkwo. The white man's court has decided that it should belong to Nama's family, who had given much money to the white man's messengers and interpreter. Does the white man understand our custom about land? How can he, when he does not even speak our tongue? But he says that our customs are bad, and our own brothers who have taken up his religion also say that our customs are bad. How do you think we can fight when our own brothers have turned against us? The white man is very clever. He came peaceably and quietly with his religion. We were amused at his foolishness and allowed him to stay. Now he has won our brothers, and our clan can no longer act like one. He has put a knife on the things that held us together, and we have fallen apart.
Take us away from Africa with the intention to steal our culture. The good for the post buy and say, humble yourself, my little one. Humble yourself, my children. Humble yourself. Oh, my brother, wa-da-da. Oh, wa-da-da. While the other night, wa-da-da. Oh, wa-da-da. Me loving Africa, wa-da-da. Love my nation, my interpretation, love universal.
Tinastilin. Greetings. Dr. Iman Block on the Metamorphosis. Out of the greenness of the parishes. Metamorphosis, STYLZ FM. We are in the middle of the final month of the year 2020, the year of the pandemic. And in this period now, we're almost halfway through this particular month. And we are literally 37 days away from the final stage appearance of one Donald J. Trump. The world expects that the empire of Trump the presidency will sign off in another 37 days. But the world still holds its breath because the Trump has some more damage to unleash on the US of A before his time is up. And so we'll explore what will this man do in the last 37 days of his regime. Who will he pardon? Will he pardon himself? Because all of these things have never been done before. And whatever has never been done before, Donald Trump will do it. So the world watches, and while the world watch, we are being exposed now to this vaccine that is being labeled as a miracle, and the world must now bow down to the whims and the powers that create these vaccines. But you know, the vaccination by itself is not a quote-unquote bad thing. What we need to understand is it really at a stage where it can be efficient based upon the length of time normally required to build up proper vaccines? So we have to acknowledge that this is an experimental vaccination. And they have bypassed the animal stage of experimentation in that warped thought. And they have moved from the lab to human beings. So there's a lot of unknown, a lot of side effects, a lot of people who will die without really understanding. And it's, in other words, a study. And I must determine whether we shall expose ourselves and our children to this study. Because certainly the argument sustains that this pandemic will be within the atmosphere for the next 24, 36 months. So I should be focusing more on maintaining our personal health through proper nutrition and exercise and the various things that will keep us alive beyond and outside of the vaccination. But it is a political issue in a place like the United States. It's not really a health issue. So we have to be careful how we analyze the results and the implications of the vaccination in the United States. Here in Jamaica, we'll deal with it later on as we go into the metamorphosis. But initially, the next 37 days will define a lot of world affairs. And I'd like to recommend that black people now not wait until the world events unfold, but try to create a set of events that will make I benefit as we go forward. So, one of the things I really want to speak to before we go into the general reasonings about power and black people's issues, there is I want somebody to help me. Because under the COVID vibrations, because I kind of have to be more into self. It encourages one to think and to examine ideas. And as I'm emphasizing the point that ideas are powerful and ideas actually rule the world, and people allow ideas to influence their economic approach and politics, etc. But we want to deal with something that under COVID has become a protocol. And it's the first time I am looking at this protocol. And it's all about sanitizing. And I want somebody to help me with this. So what they do in practice is that when you're about to enter a building that is, have people in it and so forth, they say you have to sanitize your hands before you enter. So let's use a supermarket, for example. So when I sanitize my hands and I go inside the supermarket, it's the same hands now I'm going to use to pick up the goods and look at the items, but everybody with their hands using. So we hang money, we hang everything that is, let us say, have a potential to carry virus. People have on masks, etc., etc. I'm wondering why you sanitize when we're going in. When everybody who goes in just mingle up with them, touching and them feel up of the items. I would think that after all of that gone, we want to be sanitized when we come out of the supermarket. Maybe just my brain alone working crossways, but it seemed to be more beneficial to I that if when I finish with the supermarket and paying the bills and I'm coming out, that them at the door sanitize my hands, that I can clean off my hands now from whatever I picked up inside there. I don't get it. Maybe somebody can explain, but I find it kind of back ways. You know, that is after I get my hand sanitized, I go inside now and take up things and put back down things, and everybody doing the same thing and angling the money and so on and so forth. Another point I want to raise before we get into the essence is that under COVID-19, personal revelations will come to, things have come to a standstill, and you get an opportunity to reflect and analyze. And there is a popular cliche bandied about amongst, let us say, conscious people. And the argument is that land is the basis of power. So many people say that. Them say Garvey said that. They reference all sort of people that it's sort of settling into most people's brain that land is the basis of power. So I, man, Black, challenge that on the whole heap of references and wondering if we got the message wrong. Can't remember now, you know. We quote Garvey often. It's always a man say Garvey say, land is the basis of power. Well, all right, check this. Look at a place like North Korea. Look at the size of North Korea. And look at the type of resources that are in the land in North Korea. The place is almost barren. Look at a place like Nigeria. Look at the size, look at the resources. Now let us compare which of those two states have power. So Nigeria has the land. And they have the resources in the land. They didn't have the people in numbers. But are they a powerful nation? Look at North Korea. With no resources. But guess what them have? They have something that make the United States have to bow and speak to them. They have something that they can call the President of the United States a dotard, which no other nation leader could have called President of America that. But you see, they have power. And what is the basis of power then? It can't be just land. In reality, check it. The real basis of power is military might and money. Because having the land is just having the land. But the land will not move without capital, which is money. So ultimately, it's who have the money, have the power. Whether you think you own the land or not. The land will not move. So you see, when we get out of that psyche, that land is the basis of power, we will never really achieve power as a people with that mentality. We have misinterpreted what Marcus Garvey said about power. And I'm going to say something on behalf of what Garvey said. Garvey said, and I'm quoting, he said, except the individual, the race, or the nation has power that is exclusive. It means that that individual, race, or nation will be bound by the will of the others who possess this great qualification. Garvey continues, I'm saying, it is a commercial and financial power of the USA that makes it a great banker. Therefore, Garvey advises that for the black man to get power of every kind, power in education, power in science, power in industry, politics, and higher government. It is not about just land being the basis of power. So make us adjust with mentality as we introspect and look at what is lacking and why is it black people talk about black power. How can we speak about black power until we have the power of the forces that make you respected? Money and the military. Metamorphosis.
I, the son of the Most High, Jah Rastafari, our heart shall correspond and beat it in one harmony. Sounds from the burning spear.
and praise. Give thanks and praise. Give thanks and praise to the whole man of creation. Chant down no Babylon, chant down Babylon, chant down Babylon, chant down Babylon. Give thanks and praise, give thanks and praise, give thanks and praise. Give thanks and praise to the whole man of creation. Give thanks and praise to the whole man of creation.
Yes, sir. So, hail ones and ones. Hail all the listeners, those who are near and those who are far. Because we know that in this point in time, within the calendar year, people sort of anticipate gatherings. People sort of anticipate connecting with families and friends and doing things that are sort of connected to a period called Christmas and Boxing Day and New Year's Day, and there's a whole heap of festivities and eating and spending and gathering, and that has been the rhythm from the plantation days. Grand market and all sort of set of economic activities set up around this period. Now, there is a serious setback now within all the strategic planning within this calendar year. Because under the influence now of the COVID and the various restrictions and constrictions and security issues and the thing getting complicated and the money flow is in serious handicap mode. And people are realizing that the concept of economics, that whole idea of commercial trading and buying and selling of goods, it functions in a principled way. But you see, when the times get harsh, it means the pricing system and the goods, everything just get harsh. So the cost of basic foods now coming out of the ground, it gone up on like a 200% increase. And those who are producing those foods now are complaining that hard weather lick them and them have to be making up. And so we're getting into a period that is very intense within the psychology. And at the same time now, the governing forces are insisting that the people don't congregate. So there's a major clash happening in our society. And you wondered if it's really a health issue after a while. Because if you look at it really, this spreading of this virus through transmission, there are probably greater sources of that spreading more than the mingling happening on the island, because there are a lot of persons who are still coming and going. And we're not talking about white people necessarily now. We're talking about a whole heap of black people, a whole heap of Jamaican people who coming forth and back. And, you know, we are unable to control the borders and we don't have the technology. So my great concern now with all the crisis is what's going to look like, what Jamaica will look like in early January. You know, what will be the state of our condition, because the climax and the health issues intensifying, and as if we just make a broad step into the United States and recognize that they are projecting to lose 3,000 people daily at a death rate. You know, we in Jamaica here, we have not begun to say anything yet, you know, but you see the way we're going, we have to anticipate and prepare. So what is the way forward? Requires a different kind of thinking. Yeah, and it's obvious, Simon, that the condition of Jamaica will not be the same. Basically, the world will be the change. So we have to find different ways of to connect and recognize critically now the importance of the monetary system. And how do we go about creating money more than trying to earn money? How do we turn that ability to what you call be employed, to get connected now to something that can be manufactured? Because that may be the only way forward now, you know. If we're going to break off from the dependency of foreign things and we can't afford it, the solution comes in with our ability to manufacture. And in manufacturing now, these things become commodities that we can put up for sale locally and internationally. So we need to undergo a revolutionary mindset where we become makers of things. Yeah, get that genius into creating things. And the things are in nature. One of the things I'm always advocating for is that there be a connection between agriculture and industry within the agricultural product of hemp. Yeah, we need to recognize now that as a nation, we have to turn to what is our environment. And you see that the cannabis industry basically was never set up from the grassroots. It was always set up for the man who had the finances to support a lab, etc., etc. Let us begin to advocate and pressure those who are in governance that they look seriously into the hemp industry, that will bring those lands in Portland and St. Thomas and Clarendon into work. So it's a revolution that is required to come out of these COVID vibrations. Because it is obvious that any country that depends on tourism cannot prosper. So we have to change that psyche from now, that we no longer just service providers, but they're going to be manufacturers of goods. We can create something as simple as toilet paper. We can create something as simple as hemp ganja paper. We can establish a paper industry right here in Jamaica. The options are too great. But if we keep depending on looking to the parliament for solutions, the solutions will not come. They are locked into a mindset. It is I on the outside of that mindset must look into the nation and demand that the Ministry of Industry begin to investigate hemp as a way to break the back of poverty. Metamorphosis.
I don't make up high and I mind to go through the same thing like I and I forbearance, but cheers. Cry blood, Africa, cry blood.
Yeah, we've got to continue to explore the aspects of our being. How do we, as a people or as an individual, connect all the forces that are within to operate as a unit? Yeah, how do we do the reparations of the psyche? You see, the identity issue now, oftentimes in a place like Jamaica, is a separate problem from the personality issue. You see it? So we already kind of outlined some of the issues we have with personality, but you see, within the concept of identity now, people on the island and black people in general are still a bit confounded. Because the whole concept of nationality as a dimension of identity, as opposed to raciality. In other words, when we talk about identity, there are some levels of, it's a three-dimensional concept. And one particular angle deals with the idea of race. The other one, I think, holds the concept of gender, and the other one is really your name. But on an island like Jamrock now, where the education system informed the black people here that history started in 1494 when Columbus lost his way and stumbled into this area. So people who hold that as a beginning will follow that narrative and see themselves as enslaved descendants of enslaved Africans. No, you see those people who realize that Africans and black people were here 20 to 15,000 years before Columbus stumbled here. They have a different concept of history. So their identity will be different in terms of expression. The most ancient of the black people here see themselves as black and see themselves as African. The new set of black people who came and got Christianized and brutalized, they were beginning to lock up under the identity of being West Indian and Jamaican. So the people who embrace that history of being West Indian and Jamaican, when it comes to them identity now in a time like this, in 2020, they don't really claim the African aspect of them identity because them use rational like them never born there. And that is to them is satisfying to hold on to the national identity of being born on the island. So them disconnect now from them heritage. This is a serious thing, you know. That is not even roots now, you know. That gone deeper than the roots. When you disconnect it from your heritage, you know, it's like you're cutting off your genetic memory. Yeah, man, it's more profound than just simply not being able to recognize that you're really an African per se, you know, and that you have a homeland that is not on an island and so forth and so on. So, on a place like Jamaica Island now, where you have a vast majority, I think, of the black population who recognize them African consciousness. And maybe not as many as I think, because a lot of the population is under the Christian notion of identity, of a religious identity. And sometimes that overpowers the fundamentals that they're born with, which is them racial identity. So we have to kind of sort out as individuals which identity is fundamental and foundation. Is it the identity that is national, which you can change? You know, you can fly to another country, live for a number of years and change your national identity. You have a political identity. You get that as you socialize and become familiar with politics and parties. You have a religious identity that they impose on you before you can call your name. But all of those things can be changed, and all those things are socially constructed. The identity that remains untouched in terms of its naturality is your racial identity and your gender identity. No, they're tampering with gender identity, with transgendered and transvestite and all kind of trans beings, trying to confuse the basic foundation of identity, which is male or female. As much as we know that each is born with both set of hormones. So the African issue in Jamaica now is always being contested by those who are in power, because they are comfortable just dealing with the Negro aspect of the population. They don't want to deal with the black aspect, because the black aspect now is revolutionary and the black aspect is militant. So it is that through those perspectives then, I want to speak to what the Jamaican government now is attempting to do by collapsing emancipation with independence. It's a affront to black liberation strugglers. It's a slap in the face to all of our racial resistance fighters. And it's an attempt to abolish and to wipe out over 160 years of black man struggle on this island. So from 1834 to 1962, the people want to collapse that and make that history disappear. That the people them take a poll and find money under the pandemic to take a poll. You ever hear this? To see what people think about joining these two terms, and the people don't even understand even what each of these events represent by themselves. So it obvious to me that this culture ministry have nothing to do with African culture. This culture ministry does not generate revenue that upgrades the culture of Jamaica, because this culture ministry doesn't seem to claim African culture. So the notion of Jamaican culture can be understood. But you see, the racial makeup of this country is 94% African people. So you can mask up the Jamaican and hide the African identity. And the blackness is what keeps us conscious. So when Garvey spoke and Bogo fought and Sam Sharp rise up and do him have to do, it's to liberate black people. So how is it now we are celebrating emancipation and trying to crush the journey between emancipation to the political independence and try to squash that into 4 days of celebration? And who will benefit financially from these celebrations? We're tired of them scamming, you know. Yeah, man, the Ministry of Culture is not a progressive ministry. And under that ministry is held the most powerful aspects of black people culture: sports, entertainment. It's locked up under the culture ministry. And you wonder why there's tribalism in this country, because we don't understand our black culture. And black culture is not being promoted by the Ministry of Culture. They're into tourism and celebration. Yes, COVID revelation. Yeah, the Ministry of Culture need an examination in the same way they examine the Ministry of Energy and the Ministry of Education. All of them need forensic examination. Everything slow down. Make a look. The power of the black people here rests in their powers of entertainment, sports, and that. And those are the forces that are being crushed. Make a think. Metamorphosis.
work to be done, so let's do it a little by a little. Rise from your sleepless slumber. Yes, 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 yes. We're more than sand and the seashore. We're more than numbers. All together now. Wake up and live. Wake up and live now. You see one cocoa full of basket. Already you see live big today. Tomorrow you're buried in the casket. One cocoa full of basket. Yeah, yes. Already you see live big today. Tomorrow you're buried in a casket. All together now. Wake up and live there. Wake up and live. Keep on playing. Yeah, yeah. Break it down. Come on, man. How's the feeling over there?
Emancipation. People get hung. People die. Enough blood run for that emancipation. It wasn't the liberation, you know. It was for the emancipation. And from 1834 to 1962, the amount of tribulation reached black people. We can't afford to wipe that out in memory now. Because, you know, there's 1865, major event in Jamaica. There's the workers' war when we get into the 1930s. There's a whole heap of our struggles that have been documented that we need to keep in the front of our consciousness. And look at what has been put up now to represent all of our ancestors who fought and died for that process. They build a naked statue of two big black statues of naked man and woman and put it in the center of New Kingston that expose the private parts of the black man, that violate public versus private parts, and have the two images looking into the sky. And that is supposed to be symbolic of the emancipation. That means we're still looking in the sky, and the man and the woman still far apart, and the man can't get any sensitive feelings from that woman. Jamaican people, we need to take a look into that culture thing. Because if culture is a power, how is it Jamaica struggling and warring amongst each other and so much violence? How can the island be so violent if we are such a cultural, grounded society? We appear to be grounded in a culture of violence. And that's what we want to deal with as we go through this metamorphosis. Where and what is the source of violence, not just in Jamaica, but in the history of the world. When I ask who is the most violent character in the history of the world? Yeah, we want to solve that before we finish this metamorphosis. Who is the most violent character in the history of this world? Yeah, because if you think about it, you know, and we begin to identify, you're going to say it's really connected to a lot of other things. But the metamorphosis, looking into the identity issue and how is it we have a kind of backwards approach to claiming our identity, where so many people now on the island are willing to say that they are not Africans, but they are Jamaicans because they're born here. and they don't know anybody in Africa. And the other nationalities and races have gone beyond that meditation and them claiming them heritage from wherever they are on planet Earth. And that's why we're encouraging all people who are of melanin and of pigmentation to claim your homeland, whether you're there or not. And for the black people who are in North America, claiming the homeland there is tricky because that is a capture land. There's a land under subjugation. And there's a different place that I used to fully occupy before black people got into that space as captured people. So we're searching for solutions to this island problem, and perhaps the Ministry of Culture could be the site of deeper examination and to recognize why is it the culture is so violent. What is the basis of the violence of our culture? How can the culture ministry do anything to transform the youths, that they recognize them identity, that is not just being Jamaican, but we have a heritage, and heritage goes deep into time and history, and that connection may help the youths them feel a little bit more grounded in the struggle on this place. Metamorphosis.
Jah be praised. The goose and the ghost, let Jah be praised. The Daniel Lamb, let Jah be praised. Let him be praised. Let him be praised. You better let him be praised. He watereth the hills from his chambers, and the earth is satisfied, so satisfied. He maketh the grass to grow for grass. Jah made the herb for man. He made the herb for man. Jah made the herb for man. Fret not thyself because of evildoers, neither be thou envious against the workers of iniquity, for they shall soon be cut down like grass, and they shall wither like
STYLZ FM, you're my number one. Do you have or are you seeking a place to rent, seeking employment or have a job vacancy? Are you selling a car or having a garage sale? Then come see us. Let STYLZ do the advertising for you and you'll be on your way in no time. Contact us at 439-5160. Advertising Style. Advertise with STYLZ.
Native Audio Stage and Lighting, now offering stage, lighting, and truss systems for your small and medium-sized events. Whether it's a stage show, concert, drama play, wedding, street party, or club setting, you name it, we'll bring it to life. Call us at 871-5212 or 844-6531. Native Audio Stage and Lighting, a sponsor of In the Know of the Law with Sergeant Delrose Green, and also Real Talk with Lady Cleo and Daddy Rude.
Remember STYLZ FM on social media. View us on YouTube, STYLZ FM Radio. Follow us on Instagram at STYLZ FM. Like us on Twitter at STYLZ FM 961. Become a fan on Facebook, STYLZ FM 96.1.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of Native Broadcasting Network or STYLZ FM.
Everything is going fine. Yes, blessed love. This is Denver Morgan saying, tune into the Metamorphosis with Dr. Iman Block every Monday night from 9 p.m. to midnight. Be ready to be transformed by the renewal of your mind. Jah Rastafari.
Jah be praised. The goose and the ghost, let Jah be praised. The Daniel Lamb, let Jah be praised. Let him be praised. Let him be praised. You better let him be praised. He watereth the hills from his chambers, and the earth is satisfied, so satisfied. He maketh the grass to grow for animals. Jah made the herb for man. He made the herb for man. Jah made the herb for man. Fret not thyself because of evildoers, neither be thou envious against the workers of iniquity, for they shall soon be cut down like grass, and they shall wither like now scatter, shatter, batter, and flatter. As the smoke is driven away, Jah, drive them away. As the wax melted, let them be melted, Jah Jah. Exhibit, let Jah be praised. Daniel Lamb, Jah be praised.
Metamorphosis continuing in the rhythm, exploring, examining. Always engaging the ideas of personality and identity. As black people, we need to have greater clarity in those two particular ideas. What is the essence of our personality? What is the essence of our identity? And how and where do our identities and our personalities connect? Yeah, because, you know, we have to have ourselves moving as a holistic being. At what point do we connect between our personality and our identity? Yeah, so that's on way out. So you might have to put paper to pen to paper now, you know, and do some designing, you know, and connect up. See what your identity looks like on paper and what your identity shapes like and your personality shape like on paper. How would you connect them? It's a science, you know. We have to be able to visualize now. We have to move out of just the dimension of imagination and begin to learn to visualize. That's another stage you have to take, you know, to bring your ideas to reality. It's okay to imagine it, you know, and flip it up and down and inside out. But when you have to begin to visualize now, you have to begin to almost turn it into a concrete and bring your energies to focus on the particular thing that you want to bring into being. So, where does the power rest? In our identity or in our personality? What do I think of the I self? Is the I pleased with the I own personality? And are you aware of your identity? Some people are what you call abusive, and that could be part of their personality. Because as they were growing, their me experienced a lot of violence. Yeah, and it internalized and that till them own as they get older now, it's a project out to them own self and so on. So we have to come to a consciousness that we have a force within us called a personality. And we also have a force in us called our identity. And we're talking about anchoring our personality now upon our identity. Because the identity is foundation. So if you have a misconception of your identity, your personality will be disturbed. Yeah, man, because your house is not built upon a solid foundation. So the whole notion of your identity, being conscious of your race, and for those people who are trying to hide from that idea of race and telling you that they are mixed, within every mixture there's a dominant theme. There's a dominant genetics. And Dr. Francis Chris Wilsing pointed to that dominance and showed you the reverse of that dominance is really the fear that the white people have. The fear of not having that protection and that dominance through genetic makeup. So we have to know our being, not about knowing ourselves now. We have to know our being. Because the self is just a part of our being. So the metamorphosis suggesting that individuals sort out their being, connect up the forces between your personality and your identity, and abolish the ego. In the same way, Jamaica should abolish the Governor General. It is so black man have to abolish the ego. Because it's in bringing the death to that ego, we will bring a death to that European construct that works against the nature of the black man. And in that death, there's a resurrection. And the resurrection will be the resurrection of the I. Yeah, because within the ego construction, there is no I. It's just ego and superego and id. So we have to demolish the ego as an entity that we put at the center of our consciousness, run it away, and replace that with the reality that we have from inception, which is the power that dwells in the womb. That power was in the womb. The power of the I. Metamorphosis. Yeah, the movement of the metamorphosis is to rise the consciousness that the individual can shine, the I within can shine. The I center is a state of consciousness. In other words, the I is a central point of your consciousness. And towards the liberation of your entire being, you have to really be able to speak with a certain level of awareness. That comes from knowledge versus things that you have been told to believe. So when we talk about consciousness and the transformation of the being through the elevation of consciousness, that consciousness really comes by really, first of all, letting go of nearly all beliefs. Because I remember now, it's not about holding on, it's about letting go. But because of the power of fear, people tell you, so, well, if I let go, what else I have to hold on to? Because when a person says that, that means them still not fully aware of the power and the consciousness of the I. Because that is what stands supreme. Everything else is not I. Yeah, man, everything else around you is not I. And if you begin to look at everything around you as not I, eventually what you begin to come down to is just I, which is a state of consciousness. Now, the ideas now that we generate are important because these ideas, of course, can change and transform societies and people, based on how these ideas are accepted. Ideas, of course, don't just become real. And when I say real, I mean become tangible. Because recognize an idea is an intangible concept. It's intangible, meaning you can't touch it. You can't feel it. But it exists in a dimension that we call the dimension of thought. Some say the dimension of the mind. So ideas now, as I'm saying today, I don't know. When you connect them in a certain way, they can create a system of thought, an ideology. And the ideology now is what can drive behavior in not just individual, but also in groups. Now, there is also the concept of the ideal, I-D-E-A-L. The ideal is really a projection of the idea in what is called in its most pristine form. But it does not exist in reality. That's why we call it the ideal. So there are a lot of persons who in them thinking strive for the ideal. Ain't nothing wrong with that. But you see, if you want to make a change in the practical world, you have to have a practical idea. And a practical idea must have certain methods attached to it that the idea can unfold. Step-by-step methods. So it's not enough to just have ideas, because you can have ideas by the dozen. To transform ideas into practicality requires a different approach. You have to be aware of time, space, history, economics, the environment, to determine whether that idea can give birth in a particular space and time. So there are a lot of persons living in the ideal, and they absorb the oppression and the brutality of the present because they're looking for the ideal. And I have to stop living in the ideal now, and come into what I call the practicality. We will assess our ideas to see if they can work. No. And to benefit I and I as individuals and benefit us collectively. So the thinking process needs to be fine-tuned because it's not so short of thinkers. But we have a lot of thinkers who just remain in an ideal dream stage and speak about their ideas. We need to be at a stage where ideas now can become practical and useful and applicable. Not into the future, but applicable in the now. So the metamorphosis, suggesting to the idea that we have consciousness as a power. And consciousness is what enables us. And once we enable ourselves, then we are able to do. So we could activate the enabling power that is within us. Metamorphosis.
Management, unemployment, imprisonment, the way we do you. Slave rocket, empty wallet, broke pocket, the way we do you. In and yard, rent card, landlord, the way we do you. What a federation, domina jam domino. It's all over creation. Not only in a jam, no, and not only inflation, all over creation, yeah, and not be a starvation. Not only in a jam, no, homicide, suicide, genocide, the way we do you. Consideration, desperation, eradication, the way we do you. Gamblings, hustlings, scufflings, the way we do you. Keep up, stay broke, bad luck, the way we do you. What a federation, domina jam domino. It's all over creation. Not only in a jam domino, and not only inflation. Domina jam domino. It's all over creation. Not only in a jam domino. Promises, apologies, diseases, the way we do you. Power cut, water shut, hungry cut, the way we do you. Con man, gunman, hangman, the way we do you. Courthouse, jailhouse, detention, the way we do you. What a federation, domina jam domino. It's all over creation. Not only in a jam domino, and not be a star.
What can we do to transform ourselves? To improve the quality of our personality? What can we do to upgrade our personal behavior? Because ultimately now, with all of the activities going on in the brain, thought and creating of ideas and words and all of these verbal things, there is the acting outside now that is important, and we call it the behavior. And behavior now is a very, very serious type of expression now, behavior, because that's what people have to engage with. Sometimes they don't know what you're thinking, but it's the behavior they have to deal with. So the concept of personality now is that we usually connect your behavior to your personality? Which one comes first? Do you develop the behavior, or are you born with the personality? We have some things called characteristics and traits. These are words that we use when we speak about behavior and the foundation of behavior. So the individual now, the I, gets connected and comes out and have this identity and have this personality that's going to develop. Because I'm saying we don't really necessarily born with the complete all the elements of personality, because society has to influence and impinge upon our framework that helps to frame the personality, the environment. So within the Jamaican now framework, Jamaican society, when it comes to behavior, we have some behavior here that strange and weird sometimes, and we have some very, very positive behavior related to certain events and incidents. But you see, the ones that is odd now is what tend to keep us apart. The odd behavior, but the behavior is driven by thinking. The behavior is driven by an ideology. It is driven by a philosophy. No, sometimes we do have the time to go around the corner to look at those things, we'll do what we feel like and just say, yeah, true, we feel so. But in the times that we kind of have to reflect, and it just so. It have a foundation, it have a source. In a place like Jamaica now, the term, the behavior, and the expression that I hear most in every era of life that I travel is the term bad-minded. I mean, I am overwhelmed, and like you said, Jamaica is what you call super saturated with the idea of bad-mindedness. It is like, it's becoming like a second nature to explain people's behavior in Jamaica. So now, I said to myself, this concept of bad-mindedness wasn't such a dominant feature across the island landscape 20 or 30 years ago. It doesn't mean people weren't bad-minded. But what is this bad-minded thing? And what is the genesis? Because if we could have solved that in a Jamaica alone, we think we'd have cleared up enough issues. So make us slow down and look at the language. Bad-mindedness. Because it's relevant in the psychology now, you know, coming out of a behavior, some things, some perceptions, some analysis, and you end up saying the person bad-minded. All right. You see, if we check our education from basic school, and if we check our religious education from before we go to school, there has been a subtle way of giving us information that relates to these behaviors. So, for example, within our social setup, we are told that women are by nature jealous. No, check that. Check that. And people accept that 90% and more. That the female by nature is jealous. Okay? There are a lot of females who run with that and use that to justify much of their behavior. But what is this jealousy thing now? What is this jealousy thing? And you know, if you trace the origin of that concept a little further, it goes into the religious training. And it goes to the foundation of our religious education, where we are told that we must believe in an almighty God that is jealous. Jealousy, if you check out how it functions, doesn't work alone. Jealousy, like most things, have a partner. And the twin that travels with jealousy is envy. These are psychological moments now. And once you begin to talk about jealousy and envy, you can pick up the trail of destruction that follows. Because it's wrath and grudgefulness and spitefulness, and these are outlined in the Oriental culture. They call it the 7 poisons. The Christian Bible speaks of the 7 sins. So how is it that we embrace an Almighty that is the whole of the first sin, of the deadly sins? So I am saying to the item now, this notion of females being jealous by nature is a false idea. It's a false idea, and it promotes destruction in civil and social relations, and it allows people to anticipate that the next step is that they don't want you to have what them have now. You see, because jealousy is also a sort of admiration, you know. But you say the next stage is that you don't want the next person who have it to have it. That is a downward spiral now, you know. You become envious. And then you become grudgeful. So when you hear somebody in Jamaica, you're bad-minded, it could be any one of those 7 strands. And oftentimes the person who say it, they themselves suffer from bouts of jealousy. But they ignore that. They don't think jealousy is bad-mindedness. It's everything else. But you could check yourself and check if that is not the source of much disturbance in the ego of the male. Jealousy. Metamorphosis. Yeah, Metamorphosis rolling on. Even thanks for the listeners who are locked in. You know, I have a WhatsApp number, you know, I'm going to leak it out. And for the ones now who want to drop a message or something, I will be able to hear it and read it. Not only hear it, I'll be able to read it until you fully understand the setup. But I will issue a number, a WhatsApp number. It's 876-873-7577. That's 876-873-7577. Yeah, you can WhatsApp the Metamorphosis. And I, man, will pay attention and respond inappropriately. Yeah, as we go through making the thing work. So into the I word section, you know, we're exploring identity, exploring personality, looking at the things that make black people sometimes disconnected, but with the attitude that we can reconnect and put all the pieces together, we can become our own psychologists and examine our own behavior. Because essentially, you know, that we're able to examine our own behavior. That we can look at our attitudes and recognize that sometimes these attitudes are doubtful. Some of the attitudes are negative, some of the attitudes are positive. And begin to address those issues within ourselves before we point our fingers on other people. So it's about healing. And we have to heal ourselves first. So in another sense, it's like looking at yourself through the lens of the I. Maybe that is a better way to put it. Because we identify these three elements that make up the personality: the I, the me, and the self. So we can use the I now to examine what has been built up as a self, and how the self conducting itself. Yeah, and do you agree with that type of behavior? Because that behavior now is influenced much by the society. And the I have ability to analyze the society and analyze histories and philosophies and recognize whether that self, what that self dealing with, whether making any sense or whether it goes or not. So within your own self-examination now, using the I, you can look at your attitudes. A simple examination of your own self is to ask thyself, how do you describe a glass that has water in it that goes up to halfway in the glass? What is your interpretation linguistically, and how do you observe a glass that has water in it halfway? There are persons who will say the glass is half empty. And there are others who will say the glass is half filled. That is a reflection of two different attitudes to the same experience. One said half empty, which is more negative. One says half filled, which means that the possibility of it being filled totally exists. Now we develop these attitudes and characteristics from the immediate environment that we grow in, which is our family and our people. How do our parents deal with these type of things? What is their attitude? Because attitudes don't grow on other persons. Yeah, attitudes grow on other people, especially their children. They adapt your attitudes, and this is not a conversation. This is through observation. So it's hard now for you to try to encourage a child in certain directions when the child reading your attitudes and they're not saying the same thing. So we have to do a lot of self-improvement here within this COVID period, where that's what we're forced to do. We're forced to improve our own being. We have to use the I to examine the self. Because ultimately, them say you must have self-awareness. They don't say that you need to be aware of the I, Them say you must have self-improvement. There's no I improvement. Them say you must have self-consciousness, but they also need I consciousness. So we have to realize the construction, that the I is the foundation. The self is what we grow and we create through tension and through society. So we heal ourselves by clarifying the Trinity within. The self cannot be the driving force because some people lose themselves. You imagine that? They lose themselves. Yeah. But the I remains consistent. So let us build the consciousness of the I and realize that the self is a social construct. It's a reflection of the tension between I and me and the society. So we could keep that framework and we could work on liberating the I from the false concepts. And we could recognize that the me is a power base, the self is a social construct, the I is a divine within. Metamorphosis.
With his garment dipped in blood, said it I go red hot, down in Jehoshaphat. Yes, it I go red hot, down in Jehoshaphat. When Jah come from Jerusalem, with his garment dipped in blood, said it I go red hot, down in Babylon. Try to bear fruit before they open up the door. Can't understand how they treat the poor. Yeah, when Jah were born in a stable, a saddle grass, a little hay lazy. With his garment dipped in blood, yes, it I go red hot, down in Jehoshaphat. Oh, it I go red hot, down in Jehoshaphat. When Jah come from Jerusalem, with his garment dipped in blood, yes, it I go red hot, down in Babylon.
Metamorphosis moving through. Gonna drift out of this segment in a little while. But I want to go and listen to some Richard Spice. Yes, here it is.
are bringing the crack and the gun to come and shove the youth them hard. Let's run red. When you all are look never that different. I hear an next you dead. Whoa. Let's run red. When you all are look never that different. I hear an next you dead. Yeah.
More Richard Spice.
Oh, na na na. Eh. Na 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 na. Wanna me that, couldn't do that, can't see true love and walk away. Wanna me that, couldn't do that, can't see true love and walk away. Love got the powers, like a flag flowing high to the castle of my heart. No matter what color, race, or class it may be, flowing through me like a roaring river, rushing to the mighty sea. It's burning hot, hot, 100.5 degrees. Oh, na na na. Eh. I know me that couldn't do that, can't see true love and walk away. I know me that couldn't do that, can't see true love and walk away. I know me that couldn't do that, can't see true love and walk away. I know me that couldn't do that, can't see true love and walk away. If loving you is wrong,
This is the Metamorphosis coming out of a segment that we normally call I word, sound, and power. But there's no exit until the point of me, myself, and I is recognized as a trinity within the African personality. So me, myself, and I, the three away, is one force. And the I within that trinity have characteristics and traits that influence the behavior, direct the behavior. Now, the traits, TRAITS, this is a term that refers to most of the things that you inherit through your genetic makeup. So you get behaviors, potential behaviors from your parents, potential behavior from your mother, potential behavior from your father. And these rest in your makeup as traits. You also have characteristics. Maybe coming from the same dimension, but I'm saying most of these things now are socially organized and informed. That help to build your characteristics, your character. I'm saying one of the essential characteristics of an I that has recognized consciousness is its Afrocentricity, meaning that the I locates itself centrally within the African consciousness. And essentially, the I must have a quality called integrity. Yeah, you should know integrity is a characteristic. I don't know if it's a trait, but I think it's a characteristic that can be developed. And integrity is critical now to the transformation of a people, especially at the level of leadership. Because integrity means, the I don't bend to whims and fancies. It means the I can defend its position, and that I is capable of being flexible when the position is not tenable. What look at fancy words are, but when you see a situation that you definitely see that you're not, what you're saying don't go, so you must be willing to change. So that adaptability now is required. But it is crucial that as individual black people, man and woman, we begin to develop this idea within ourselves that there is a thing called integrity. And integrity usually is validated now by how you use your words. Because through the power of words, you develop confidence, or you con people. It's not so far from it. So integrity now relates to ideas of being truthful, being fair. There's a kind of morality attached to integrity. So I'm saying now, I and I have to develop that integrity, especially in our relations at home and with our people close by. That now trust can now become a part of the relation. And the word now returns to being the bond. That a man's word is his bond. Now we're using the word to scam and trick people. We need to shake off that Western Roman framework of deception and disguise and begin to deal with integrity. If you have a building and you want to know if the building is sound, the word they use is that the building has integrity. It built with certain, specifications, and so, well, the I within all of us is built with a divine principle. There's a divine reality behind the I. And it's a matter to come in to know. And once you come to know that divinity, you begin to talk about being in. You understand? Integrity begins to emerge as a characteristic. Intuition begins to surface. And you begin to exercise the intellect. And all of the infinite powers within the I becomes available. And then you can generate those energies now through that socially constructed thing called the self. So the metamorphosis, putting forward a psychological framework for the Black African personality. Me, myself, and I. Me, the physical temple. Myself is a creation of I and me. And there's also I self, as well as there's myself. So we can speak in any direction. And this is why we speak to ourselves. And it's not unusual. Just don't answer back in a different tone of voice. And you're all right. Metamorphosis.
Take and every breath you make, because the little things you do is coming back at you. The ditch you dig, it might just be a destiny. I might just rise above the odds to gain my victory. Hey, do right, do right, do right, do right, do right. Do good, do good, do good, do good, do good. Because the world is a cycle. Everything I have has to come around in a circle. The world is a cycle. And everything I have has to come around in a circle. So if I see you stumble, I'll catch you before you fall. The world is round and it's spinning like a ball. Who has eyes to see? Let them see. Well, trap on fire, trap on shoulder. Think about the youth, think about their future. Don't let them girls of the youth, some get wiser. Spitting out the skies, I go falling on your eyes, man. In everything you do, remember to pray. Your prayer and day takes the devil away. In every
you don't remember to pray, you need to pray every day. Chase the devil away. In everything you don't remember to pray, you pray every day. Chase the evil. Well, it's a cycle. Everything I do is to come on in a circle. The world is a cycle. And everything I do is to come on in a circle. Earth a come, earth a forward. As it was in this iration, so shall it be in this Taiwan. Joy is the key, still am I the master. Hey. Whatever you do, that's how you shall prosper. The world is a cycle. Everything early has to come on in a circle. The world is a cycle. Everything early has to come on in a circle. Every step you take and every breath.
Where the legacies and the histories and the heritage of the people of Carbon. I pick up that phrase on the Facebook. I'm not into the people of color, because the black is not a color. But the people of Carbon. And we speak and examine our story, looking through the Afrocentric lens, as taught to us by Molefe Kete Asante. So we look at the stories of Africa through an Afrocentric perspective. And in that analysis now, we ground our consciousness on the mainland. Because consciousness can be anywhere. I was doing a little reading on some material that related to the stolen property of Africans that are now in the museums of Europe. And they've robbed and they've stolen and they've pillaged all our artwork, our artifacts, our cultural symbols, our jewelry, everything. They have it all wrapped up in museums in the United Kingdom and in Europe. And we black people can't even afford the money to go into those museums to see what is it they have stolen from us. And they are refusing to return it. They think they have better facilities to preserve it. Check it out. They rob it from us and think that they can keep it better than how we had it. One of the European countries that is, I think, was a pioneer in this piracy of African culture were the Germans. And I had a brief visit in Germany, and I actually went into one of their museums and went to a little section where they had a specific area on Egyptian Nile Valley culture. They had calendars with all the gods and goddesses representing each year. I was overwhelmed. They had little mock canoes and representing the gods and the pharaohs and everything. So the German and as a matter of fact, if you check out the Germans, they are the one who first come up with this white theory of being supremacy, of being supreme, you know. It's Aryan them. See, they got exposed to enough of the ancient cultures of ancient Egypt because they led the plundering now of the pyramids, you know, the Germans. And they stole all of the papyrus them and put them names in front of it. The papyrus is the writings, you know, the paper that I invent and document our research. And them steal it and put them name in front of it. So I was going through some stuff and run up into one called the Berlin Papyrus. And another one called the Brindle Papyrus. So what them do, them steal our literature and put them name in the front. This particular papyrus now explained mathematics for thousands of years before the white man came out of the cave. Formulas. And they just capture them thing there and turn them into scientific research and start building rockets and weapons of destruction, because that's what the Germans became famous for. War machinery. But it's not them alone, you know. You have to look at all of the white people in Europe. And if you look at them behavior collectively, it was no different from Hitler, because their mentality that they were superior to all people of melanin. They thought that they were superior to all people of carbon. Hitler thought that he was superior to them and to all other people. So within the old white structure, there was a group who called themselves the Aryans. And they saw themselves as superior. And so everybody else around them were lesser than human. And they were even lesser than less when they when they had the melanin in there as a content. Now, the point I want to get at, you know, to review our story, is that these European countries, you know, Germany, France, Portugal, Spain, the Dutch, you name them, they all gathered in Berlin. And Berlin seemed to be the key spot enough time in Europe. But they gathered in Berlin at a conference in 1884. These white men decided to shear up and carve up Africa, sanctioned by the Pope. Now, what we need to know within that history of Alkebulan and our story is that if you just calculate that there were 50 countries in Africa, for example, and they captured 48 of them, the white man them, 48 of them out of the 50 them capture and share up and split up and divide up. There were 2 other countries them in Africa that they were having problems with. One was Liberia, and I am unsure about Liberia's history because I know that they have a lot of influence. The United States had a foothold in Liberia because a lot of black men living in America saw Liberia as a place to repatriate. So I can't speak much of resistance to European colonialism from Liberia, but you see the other country now, which is Ethiopia. Ethiopia became the only country then, you know, may I say, you know, that really resists them white men that would gather up in a Berlin, you know, to shear up Mother Africa. We have to know this as our story. Them captured from the south straight up to the north. As a matter of fact, they went down into the north and they went sideways into the west and them cleaned up the continent and then reached up into one major stumbling block. That major stumbling block was Ethiopia. And Ethiopia resisted the whole of Europe, all of those, the juggernauts, under Menelik, wage war with the Italians. The same Italians now who tell you them love Selassie and them is more Rasta than I and I. So Menelik wage war resist the Italians, And Haile Selassie come forward and carry on the same mission. Because the Italians never gave up the attempt to conquer Ethiopia. But Ethiopia is a very special place because of its anciency. Ethiopia is more ancient than Egypt. You see, so now when we want to know about black people history from that perspective of the continent, we're going to ancient Ethiopia. And to show you the power of Ethiopia, is out of Ethiopia now comes the ideology of Rastafari. Yeah, and Rastafari emerged as a liberating movement, not as a religion, as a liberating movement that have a blackness as its essence. You see them same white country, you see them same set of white man them money they go down and Haiti too now, you know. Because remember now, you know, by 1800 and so, you know, Haiti is the only black country in the Western Hemisphere now who rejects slavery. And all of those countries that just talk, Haiti fight them off and murder them at sea. Haiti beat all of those countries independently, individually, and then Haiti run with them as a collective group. Because the Haitian them recognize that power rests in the military. You have to have military power, and your people can defend yourself militarily. It's trick, the white man use them sly, slick self and trick the leadership of the Haitian revolution and get Louverture to leave all the way from Fame country to go all the way into Spain, into France. Should never have made that journey because the matter from that time that you don't trust a white man, the only white man you can trust is a dead white man. Louverture forgot that and lose the power. But Dessalines rise up and hold the fort and declare Haiti that independent republic. So it's a military power and economics and psychology and history and culture. Yeah. Metamorphosis.
This is STYLZ FM.
Business operators, local and overseas. This announcement is for you.
STYLZ FM is an internationally known radio network with worldwide listeners in over 120 countries.
From our studio in Port Antonio, Jamaica, to the ears of the people in your community, our listeners can be your new customers.
STYLZ FM is an economical, efficient, and effective advertising option for your business.
No matter the size of your business, there's always growth potential. STYLZ FM provides the customer reach needed to realize that upward movement.
So procrastinate no more. Advertising is a must.
For more details on how to advertise with STYLZ FM, visit www.stylzfm.com or email info@stylzfm.com or call us on 876-518-2399.
STYLZ FM, the world listens.
Architects, draftsmen, and surveyors, get your drawings printed in high-quality professional standards. We can satisfy your printing needs. Whether it is for presentation to your clients or for submitting building and subdivision application, make it VJ Printing Services. Whether drawing by hand or with computer-aided softwares, we will plot your negatives and print the copies as you need. We do high-quality white paper printing that is water-resistant and never fades, unlike traditional blueprint. For more information, call VJ Printing at 893-2266.
Remember STYLZ FM on social media. View us on YouTube at STYLZ FM Radio. Follow us on Instagram at STYLZ FM. Like us on Twitter at STYLZ FM 961. Become a fan on Facebook. STYLZ FM 96.1.
This feeling is taking over me. I'm so excited.
Feel the euphoria.
Tuesdays from 5 to 9 p.m. with the Master Mixer Musical Maestro Digital Team.
Giving up total satisfaction with melodies and memories by the score. With the widest selection of genres and hits. So you don't know that program you turn up, you know. So you know Patek's a full dance, the one you slap with.
Digital and we are party. Yeah, we flawless. Euphoria
the program every Tuesday.
5 to 9, every Tuesday.
With the musical maestro digital team.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of Native Broadcasting Network or STYLZ FM.
From in the days of the plantation farm, say that one that name. You have me all the plant, all of the bees and all the corn, that one that name. Then you turn round and one laugh with the dance and me say again. 400 years, blood, sweat and tears, working so hard, never get no pay. 400 years, blood, sweat and tears, working so hard, never get no pay. Never gonna get me down, always wanna let me down. Never gonna get me down. We need the ancestry pension, that the youth them are depend pan. Where the money spent pan, them this Marcus Garvey from Satan. We get the vision for redemption. Too much Middle East tension, biological intervention. Want to turn the people them in a straight and say again. 400 years, blood, sweat and tears, working so hard, never get no pay. 400 years, blood, sweat and tears, working so hard, never get no pay. You see that now, apple field got on the battlefield, cane field got turn the blood stain field, yeah. Then ask them how them feel, if you say them no real, oh, bigger judgment again, you see it. Now them ships sinking and a straw, see them catching, hear them chatting, yo. See them blast off in them spaceship, and now I see them crashing. Anyway, again, some me say again. 400 years, blood, sweat and tears, working so hard, never get no pay. 400 years, blood, sweat and tears, working so hard, never get no pay. We will forgive, but we never forget, yeah. North, south, east and west, Rastafari is the ultimate deals, them bless, yes. Alright, again the seats up. Now forget how you take what is rightful of minds, yeah. But still I seek and search what they know I'll find, yeah. Ooh. What is for me could never be for you, it's true, yeah. Any evil that you do shall turn back to you. 400 years, blood, sweat and tears, working so hard, never get no pay. 400 years, blood, sweat and tears, working so hard, never get no pay. Hatred is the war that we get for love. Give thanks to the blessing that's come from above. Yo, we got judgment again, them never hear when me I tell them say yo. Tell them sitting on a time bomb, but them never know the time span. Never know them would have find one. Yeah, I'ma sing my song and tell them say again. Babylon.
All praise unto the Most High. This last year. Rastafari. Alongside mystical villas. Now Blizzard is man that walking on the coast of the garden and see the sky fall. Now stand the ways of sinners. Oh, religion. Boys the life and laugh the land. And the laugh the land that meditate day and night. I do remember that God they are not so. How man like soldier alongside Billy Mystic say. Yeah. Billy Mystic.
If you don't know, Lord, the things that I know, Babylon taking my division. I know, and the Bible says so. You can't come tell about religion. Pharisees. You never knew.
Yeah, we're deconstructing some of the allegories now and the mythologies and the fables. And we're going to examine even some of the cliches for what the time allows in this section. Deconstructing the mythologies. I want to heal up Rastris. I want to heal up all the persons who are in the New York, Brooklyn, New Jersey, Connecticut area, you know. Lance and Bava Blue and the Virgin them in Pennsylvania. And after heal up, no more get caught, no more have to call all the people in the divided states of America. But heal up and know say Metamorphosis is here for the item to listen and for the item to engage in them own analysis and working out them own identity and personality issues. Get everything on one page. That when you meet with another person, it's easier to operate at the I and I level. And not such a me and you. Yeah, but it's more I and I. So there is a thing now that people don't want to discuss, which is really, okay, and before I'm going to further, I want to hear up Kevin too. Kevin in Tampa. And whatever you hear or say, I mean, I can't comment. Here, Virgin, but who say, never say. But I don't know about that. And I want to hear up Amira and Yaya. Yeah, out of St. Thomas there, right against the border. Good people. Give me all food enough time when we're coming through the Portland St. Thomas journey. So I always respect and support the people in that region. Yeah, the whole of Jamaica Island, you know, we have great spots. Not everybody is a crook. Not everybody want to rob the next person. We still have a certain level of compassion in our being. But the environment harsh. You know, an environment bending up enough man eye. That himself start look twisted. So we work it out, you know, because we need to resolve our own issues. No one will help us. No one will let the African have to help themselves. And then we have to let go of the tools that they have left with us because those tools have only kept us in one spot. So investigation and curiosity is something we have to resurrect. But forget away from the concept of fear. We are told that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. We have under that wisdom for 2,000 years and we're more fool and we're less powerful. So we have to question that wisdom that we're getting under this fear of the Lord. Because the I never come into existence with any fear. So why should fear dominate now the I? COVID-19 revelation show that the religion and the church has no power. The only power is in them noise. But there's no healing power because what is facing the church now and the world is something that is healed and attacked through science. Nobody can pray away COVID-19. And the blood of Jesus will dry up on those who try to use that to heal anybody. So there's a wide awakening happening. And some people are afraid to look. But there's no healing. Those who thought that they had these spiritual divine powers are running and hiding. And they're probably all asymptomatic. So what has this church religion thing doing for black people for the last 2,000 years? It has not been a liberating force. It has been taking away the important thing that gives you power, which is your money. I mentioned that it's the money and the military might, you know. And the church has been a source of sapping our money. They take the money under the guise of something called tithing. And tithing is what we should be using as our investment money. The tithing is our investment savings. Because we have emergency savings. And we have spending. To transform ourselves from poverty into being able to access and attract money. Yeah, we have to begin to do our personal tithing and leave the church, leave those buildings and let them use them for training and transfer those buildings into training centers that youths can become employed technically. We're gone past this now, you know. COVID shows us that we don't need that as an institution. It's not a liberating institution. It doesn't provide nothing under this COVID vibrations, not even space. So let us awaken that consciousness that I speak about and shake off what we need to shake off. It's not about holding on. It's about letting go. If you are in a relation and you're holding on to this person because you love them dearly, let them go and see if they love you dearly. Will they stay or will they go away? If you hold them, you'll never know. Let them go and test your FATE, yeah, your faith. Metamorphosis.
Ready, make we do it. And if you're ready, make we do it. Make we do it for Jah. Make we do it. Rastafari. Make we do it. The roots and culture. Make we do it. And if you're ready, make we do it. Make we do it. And make we do it. Make we do it. And make we do it. Nation have to do it. Every nation have to do it. Every nation have to do it. Every nation have to do it. Make them do it, yeah, make them do it. Make them do it, yeah, make them do it. Do it for Jah. Rastafari. Roots and culture. Do it for Jah. Rastafari. Roots and culture. I make we do it, I make we do it. I make we do it, I make we do it. And if you're ready, 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 make we do it. I make we do it, I make we do it. I make we do it, I make we do it. I make we do it for Jah. Jah Rastafari. Rastafari.
I will assume that under the COVID vibrations and the lockdown and the lock-in, maybe more people now have find time to read Bible now, you know. Yeah, I think that may become something that is increasing. And as the stress and anxiety multiply, people seem to be searching for some solution, some answer to this global, issues, worldwide things, and some are into the argument that we are in the last days. And the Bible people them now looking into the same book now to explain to them, because you see, they can't think out an explanation, All explanations now, according to the teachings, are in the Bible. So this Bible now is something that, as a people and as an individual, we have to start develop what them call objective analysis, where we can try to separate our emotions from the stories in that book. We are, first of all, we are told that it is the word of God. Right? First thing that them tell you is the word of God. And then they describe God to us. And in this description, you tend to get terrified. When they describe God to you, it's not something that make you feel warm and ugly and smooth. It's something that drives fear in you. So the first thing we have to recognize now is that if this is the word of God, then God is a fear driver, a fear monger. There is a man who, we will say a man now, because they even tell us now that God is a him. So there's him now that is in control. We are told that it's him tell the people and what to write. Right? That we are told now, we have to accept these things that we get them at Sunday school. That this thing now that they tell us name God now, tell certain men certain things and tell them to write it. And when they tell them things now, those men tell us that it is called an inspiration. So when God tell you things, you have been given an inspiration. No, I don't know if inspiration stopped give since the Bible people drop out and don't exist anymore. But if we go on with the argument of inspiration and do our own research and examination as to what is an inspiration, you find that inspirations can come from anywhere. And we're talking about thoughts now and feelings. We're going into the intangible world of mind and brain consciousness. So these things exist really as ideas as well. So a man is inspired. Suppose the inspiration is negative. Where does it come from? So Adolf Hitler, he was an inspired leader. Yeah, so was King Leopold of Belgium. These men could be called inspired leader, but their inspiration led them to the Holocaust of millions of Africans. So what is the source of that inspiration? What do you say? Because it don't work in our favor, it's the devil. And when it works in our favor, it's God. I don't know about inspiration coming from these God or devil now, you know. Because right away you set up a little framework now. We have good inspiration and bad inspiration. And so you go back into this good and bad struggle now. So how do we know that those who got right things, inspiration to write the Bible, that those were good inspirations? How do we know that? We don't. And then we'll check the characters now who we are told were inspired. The first one we run up into is Moses. Them says him write the first 7 books. So God inspired him to write 7 books. That is serious. That is enough writing. And guess what him writing? Him writing from the beginning. And I know must come as a black man, knowing my history and culture of 200,000 years and more. I will fall down to the writings now of a character named Moses, because somebody forced onto me the idea of inspired by God. King James, we are told then, was inspired by God to authorize. King James was a queer, but I guess it matters not, because God will work through anybody, not true. Yeah, we're given this Bible thing, you know, and we're told that it's inspired men write it, but what did they write? Half of the writing is about violence. And I'm saying to them now, in that book, that Bible, that is supposed to be the history of the world from the beginning to the projected end, who is the most violent character in that history of the world? I want to think about that for a second. Who is the most violent character in the history of the world according to the Bible from its beginning to where it said reach now? Who is the most violent character? Soon forward.
Is it loaded? War in a Babylon, tribal war in a Babylon. Look at that, is it loaded? What you say? Is it loaded? Oh yeah, war in a Babylon, tribal war in a Babylon. Is it loaded? What you say? Is it loaded? Oh yeah. The Baba men no like the dreadlocks man. The dreadlocks man no like the Baba man no. The police men no like the dreadlocks man. The dreadlocks man no like the police men no. So war in a Babylon, tribal war in a Babylon. Is it loaded? What you say? Is it loaded? Oh yeah, war in a Babylon.
Not so many chanting out war vibrations. And you know, if you really look at it seriously, Them teach us that in the Bible there was a war in heaven. Remember?
Such a mysterious time. We're living in serious times. So strengthen your mind. We're living in serious times. It's such a mysterious time. We're living in serious times. You do not know if your friend or enemy or a friend. Right now things are hectic. So who is serious or playing tricks? Keep a firm meditation. Don't stop in nothing foolish. Keep your heart clean and strong. Let your God self be established. And strengthen your mind. We're living in serious times. It's such a mysterious time. We're living in serious times. Strengthen your mind. We're living in serious times. It's such a mysterious time.
Yeah, the sound of Desiree. That is strengthen our consciousness. Yeah, because we're living in critical times. So true.
Give not all your strength unto
They give us a book and tell us that it is the word of God,
ways that can destroy.
written by inspired men. And in the book they tell us that there was a war in heaven before the Garden of Eden was created. There was war. There are those who like to make the black man think that he is warlike by nature, you know. Yeah, that he is violent by nature. I'm going to show the item that is far from the truth. So before we were even given an opportunity to free our consciousness, we were given a book. And that book informs us that war existed before the Lord created the Garden of Eden and put people in there to practice deception and trickery. That has been implanted in the consciousness of black people now, and we think that that is history. And we store that information now in our consciousness, thinking that we have knowledge. But if you check the world history now through that same book, war start the book, deception in the beginning of humankind, and we see that there is a violence that is perpetuated in that book by the Lord God itself. The same God that Moses speaks of and the same God that Noah speaks of is a God that promotes violence. Check the stories. The God of Noah gets so vexed and wipe out creation and leave 8 people. That is the extent of the anger of this God, this loving God, you know. So that's a bipolar behavior. And then you check the God of Moses. More violence. Yeah, kill off people to make lands for his people. Kill all firstborn in Egypt in a plague. Destruction and violence. And I said to the people, I and I is at a part of that. The media and the schools try to make African people feel that violence is part of our makeup and it is part of our nature, and that is false. That is false. We have been indoctrinated into absorbing violence on this island from the days of Henry Morgan. We have to reject that phrase. We have to reject that ideology and begin to live in a more communal way amongst I and I and break down that violence, especially now between male and female. Because the greatest struggle and division is a divide planted between the male and the female in the African race. Because the Bible gives us the impression that there's an internal struggle because one is superior to the other. All of these doctrines need to be revisited and need to be jettisoned if we want to liberate the eye consciousness from all of the trappings. So the stories and the violence, much of it is tied up into King James and his literature. But too many of our people using that literature as a salvation. It is time to reject what is false and to let go mythologies and fables and begin to search for the knowledge that is African centered, and that is liberating. Metamorphosis. Moving into the Afrocentric views on news, NEWS. NEWS really means information from the north, the east, the west, and the south. News. So there's news down in the northern plantation where the president is surrendering, it seems, finally. Where today the Electoral College made its decision in the counting. So it technically means that the resistance at the political level is over, but the resistance at the cultural level will go on in America. Their cultural resistance is lined up as the Trumpites versus the rest. The masked society versus the maskless. And of late, the transition from the Trump regime to the Biden-Kamala Harris regime, they're going on a heavy campaign to blacken up America. Pure first black here and first black there. First black and first woman. That is now the new, mantra in America. So all kind of positions now are being filled. You want to say? Positions. No, there are two things that white people in America use to preserve them society. When black people get angry and get that kind of way boisterous with them. There's a thing called appeasement. And there's a thing called tokenisms. And at this moment, them are overrun America now with tokenisms and the policy of appeasement. Trying to ease the pressure being mounted by movements that demanding justice. But it's not justice in the court system, justice in the medical health system, justice in education, justice in all of the areas that a citizen of a country should be able to access. But the deception is going to be great in the north because the police force has not changed its mentality. And so those who expect any depth change may be disappointed. The pandemic is moving 3,000 lives out of the United States daily. And that will happen for the next 2-3 months. So whenever America passes January 20th, and they no longer can speak to Trump anymore as the cause, the reality will set in. Vaccination will become mandatory. The airline agencies will fall in line and decisions will have to be made. Will you take the vax? And if you don't take it, what will be the implications and the conditions of your life? Serious times facing us. You see, on the local scenario, they have a campaign that the government launched. They call it Bring in the Guns. I think it's a comedic attempt to transform this nation. It's very cosmetic. Jamaica have guns from the 1960s. Jamaica probably have more guns than the manufacturers. So for 40 years, this country has been armed. And it intensified as the Don man broke away and from the politician. And set up himself in a position now where he could become a drug man and have his own money, to have his own finances and his own guns. Trying to bring in the guns through all these methods of things on an island like Jamaica is senseless. Because you bring in the guns, you have not changed the mentality of the youth who are using these guns. And you have not changed the environment. And critically, you have not stopped the inflow of guns. So why are you chasing the end product and you're not dealing with the point of entrance? These are illusions. And there's no way that battle can be won if the battle is if there's an attempt to win that battle. The essence of our violence in Jamaica now, you know, really goes into the construction of what the politicians made. They made some things called garrisons. It's them make it, you know. And the garrisons now are the areas where most of the violence, or a lot of the violence, is perpetuated. And when we say violence, don't necessarily mean against the persons who live in the community, you know. We're talking about violence against the state, wherein you can't even go into certain communities and collect light bill and water rate. So the garrison become almost states unto themselves. The biggest example we had a couple years ago was Tivoli. Tivoli declared itself to have a president, to have its own hospital and court system in an island that is run by Her Majesty. So bringing in the guns is a scam, because that's not how you deal with the guns. Yeah, let us see how you're going to prevent them from coming in, slow them down, and how you're going to address the youth in the communities now who think that it is a double standard community. Why a minister can rob a ministry of millions and escape, and him have to be hungry. And if him, yeah, it is a double standard and a disconnection where the youth have no confidence in working. They see people working 9 to 5 with education and still having them light and water cut off. Bringing in the guns is a poster with a man picture upon it and look like a stage show. The reality is that the garrisons need to be addressed, and the politicians need to do what they have to do to dismantle the garrisons and give the youth them real opportunities to upgrade themselves. Yeah, this is the metamorphosis.
Watch no face, beg no more pardon. Enough drugs, money they a cherry garden. Enough individual society applauding. You can ask anybody where them get them starting. But no politician take a donation. So no criminal will never see a station. Never see a cell, not even a courthouse. But every Sunday we see them take a boat out. North Coast Resort and car dealership. The construction company, them just don't legit. Usually wash the money, turn it round and hide it. When the kickback them come in, the government delighted. So police cancel operation, cause no real bad man a go station. Now if you check the situation, a blood money running nation. Come take a look in a Jamaica. Injustice in the place now. If what you see no really face it, then you are the problem what we face now. Was about to buy a next 60 now. Maybe then I never have to be a prisoner. Maybe then I coulda not turn in my firearm. Police couldn't come remand, come me like me run an army. Was about to be a politician too. Maybe then I coulda make any decision. Look, maybe then I make 100 million disappear.
Travel documents of our renowned, famous badman police. What does that mean in 2020? Yeah, they have taken away the documents of Renato Adams for events and incidents that took place a very, very long time ago. Nobody really understands why it becomes important in 2020. But badmanism now, as I keep saying in Jamaica, has been entrenched into the culture. Because you have badman police. And you have badman. And I think you have badman politician too. Because this is badman movies. From early time, we love the badman movie, you know. And our badman culture, you know, it was first inspired by 60s behavior. And the knife war and the gangs of Western Kingston and characters who get respect, what we call in Jamaica, true badness. So we tend to glorify badness in Jamaica, yet we want a peaceful society. That's very contradictory. And a man I hear one another as, yeah man, yes, bad man. I hear up one another as bad man. And everybody try to establish a sort of fear in the next man because him is a bad man. Well, the bad man thing in Jamaica now, we have to recognize that it is being supported also by the top level. And the politicians usually and generally are surrounded by a set of men, and enough of them man who surround them is bodyguard, bad man. Yeah, it's hard to be a bodyguard and really, and you're soft, You have to be a kind of tough guy and a bad man in a Jamaican context. So the politicians now see a role for badmanism. And within the garrisons, the bad man have talk. Now, when you see the political leaders now beginning to support that culture, it means they're moving down a very dangerous slope. And I'm speaking about what's happening in 2020 and our leadership. We have a prime minister, young man, who have the potential to be prime minister for the next 2 terms, possibly. I would say the party of the Jamaica Labour Party having within them a tendency to deal with badness. And I say that because I remember Edward Seaga declaring himself as the one done. That was the first time I think any political leader ever declare or call himself the one done. And we know what a one done is. The done is really the leader of the gang. We get the one done concept when we used to watch the mafia movies and so forth. So the JLP have a one done. And that one done did his time and move on. And we have a leader today now out of the same trend. And what this leader seems to be using as a symbol that is, I think, is dangerous to the violence of cultural violence, is the footwear. Because the bad man of the 60s used to glorify the Clarks. Yeah, and there's a time when every bad man used to wear Clarks. And there's a time when the policeman, after a while, they really dance and the bad man gets so tired of the raiding that when the policeman come out, it's just barefooted man used to walk out. Yeah, the man used to just leave them Clarks and the dance and walk out. No, the Clarks was connected to the culture of bad man from that time. It went underground for a while. And then a couple years ago, Vibes Cartel come with the Clarks sound again and it resurrect the Clarks as the bad man's shoes and thing now. So it's within my own thinking now. I feel disappointed now when the leader of the country will adapt that kind of style and make it become something that is symbolic now. And the youths them now who seem to be generating excitement about this, they've given the Prime Minister a name. Like up to today, I don't understand what it means. Them call him Bro God. I don't know for sure. I don't want to guess. Bro sound like brother, but God sound like God. And I don't know what is it the youths are suggesting. I never hear the Prime Minister denounce the term yet. But you see the culture that we want to modify. You see those who lead, the greatest way to lead is just be the example. And we should not position ourselves where we're glorifying symbols of badness because we're trying to reduce that mentality and that attitude. So we need a direction from the top. Metamorphosis.
And I won't ever
Cause my heart is willing and my spirit is strong. You know, sister, that I column this, foundation this, I real rock this, and them can't match this. Me say I column this, foundation this, I real rock this, no them can't match this. It was a fool who built up on sand and not stone. Give thanks every day for the strength in my bones. Say I column this, foundation this, real rock, rock, rock. I am wiser because I've been foolish, but I still made it through it. Now I'm better, firm and more rooted. He who thinks better, I go do it. Trusting on the works of the Father and just work like a harder you will. Reap the fruits of what you do. Beg you stay true to the other, stay true to yourself. Me want to hear me sister and me brother say,
to the Queen, who's supposed to represent the people's interests as well. They are in a sad state of disarray now, and in attempting to make themselves relevant, they have risen up some issue that should have been solved 30 years ago. They are now talking about removing the Queen. You imagine that now in 2020, that becomes a part of the agenda of the PNP. That is late. That is late. I think the PNP have to find something different to captivate the imagination of the Jamaican population. Because the removal of the Queen, it has been on the boards ever since, and neither of the parties want that to happen. Unlike in Barbados, where they must remove her and done, our leadership hides behind the Governor General. We are able to rob the ministries and get away with it because everybody is hiding behind the Governor General. So none of them really want the Queen to leave. And they are trying to extend it now to talk about the people must decide by having a referendum. Waste of time and money. They have the power to decide, but if they are afraid and they don't want to. So Jamaica ultimately needs a third alternative, you know. I was speaking to a woman on Shaka's program, and she have a very good version of how we can go about it. Because the vast majority of the people are below the order of merit, as the woman would put it. The 67% that didn't participate. That group needs leadership. And the leadership don't have to represent itself in the Queen's Parliament. That leadership can organize itself amongst the people. Individuals interested in the fate of Jamaica and black consciousness need to formulate something like a people's shadow government. Yeah, that gathers together the interest of the 67%. Because there's no transformation entering the parliament. You become one member of the tribe or the other. And there's no individual. There is no individual that can enter the parliament and change Westminster model. Impossible. So the reality is that the model is outdated now. The model is outdated. Centralized government has died. Jamaica is a more complex society, and there are several Jamaicas. The level of governance must be transformed to regional structures, where St. Thomas and Portland and St. Mary and St. Anne's have a certain amount of jurisdiction. That these roads would be fixed years ago, if that was the case. But the way the case is now, Harborview will never see a road to Port Antonio, and the junction will never be fixed. So authority and power must come to the regions. That's a part of the transformation, if we want the politics to make sense. So the 6 to 7% need to be organized by interested folks and present some form of ideas to challenge what Westminster is putting. Because it matters not whether the PNP or JP put forward the argument. It's all under the umbrella of Her Majesty. When the PNP decide to attack and remove the Governor General directly, then we know that they are serious. But as far as I am concerned, they both benefit from the presence of the Governor General and Her Majesty and QCs and all of the things that her heirs and successors will benefit from. So that is the transformation we need in this Jamaica landscape. Metamorphosis.
sons and daughters sailing on the Black Star Line, going forward to Africa. I said before when a judge a word pass, heaven and earth pass away. So no matter what it costs, Marcus word I go fulfill one day. Them say first shall be last.
So where is Rastafari now within the COVID-19 experience? What is the response of Rastafari to this pandemic? And certainly Rastafari has much to offer, even in the terms of health and diet and natural livity, which is the cry now of the people. So beyond the vaccination, we have to focus on the quality of life and the livity. So the red meat, the whole heap of chicken, all of these things now we have to seriously consider to bring to a certain level of reduction. Yeah, because we have to focus a bit now on our eating habits. And Rastafari brought to the world a consciousness called ital vital living. There's also some principles and philosophies that Rastaman bring to the table that need to be updated in the present. Because we have the capitalist structure of the world has been exposed. And that capitalism really has failed in terms of making the greater majority of people having a better access to resources. One of the things that Rastafari used to highlight was the need for solidarity. But capitalism promotes competitiveness. Yeah? So it's the competitive nature that has collapsed. And in the competition, there's hardly any cooperation. We can draw upon Rastafari's inspiration for solidarity, realizing the commonality between I and I as black people. So the Rastaman was able to push beyond religious identities, political identities, and social identities, and zero in on the identity that holds us firm, which is our racial identity. And on that basis, solidarity is the key. Not competitiveness, solidarity. Metamorphosis.
Do you know social living is the best?
Winding down another edition. This one very engaged, and that their thinking caps were on. How you come? I hear up all those who participated, those who sent two greetings and things. And of course, I hear up the engineer, Jacob, high technicality, to bring through another metamorphosis. Hail up to the Jacksons as a family. The foundation of a state is the family. Jamaica is the place I come and use the family no good. But then tell me that. We know that is false. Yes, but the family is the foundation. Give thanks to another Metamorphosis. Heal up the man in a Prospect. And the man in a Bristol. The man in Titsfield Hill. And the ones in a Port Antonio proper. Right in a bundle. Yes, I'm on block saying peace and power. And land is not the basis of power. Money, military might. Yes.